welcome to episode 137 of the Balance Period podcast, the show where we share stories of self-observation and actualization with one intention in mind, and that is to empower you to be the best emotionally intelligent example you can be for our next generation. I am one of your hosts, Raymond Ashiel, aka Recovery Ray.
And the Bald Sage.
All right, today we have a very special guest on the show, but before I introduce her, we are going to do a brief mindful moment. So Nick, can you dig back in that bag of yours and pull out a mindful moment that we can do before we get the episode underway?
Of course, we're going to keep it real simple today. So for today's mindful moment, all you're going to do is sit comfortably where you are, and you're going to breathe in through your nose as slow as you possibly can. Now, as you begin to breathe through your nose, I want you to feel the air as it goes into your lungs. And as you begin to enter into that space, I'll talk you through it. So I'll count us down 3, 2, 1, and then you just start inhaling. And then once you feel like you've inhaled enough, please exhale and then inhale again. 3, 2, 1. Inhale through your nose. You just want to go nice and slow. Let your body feel all the air coming in. Let your lungs expand. Whenever it's full, you want the same gentle exhale. Feel the air coming out. Allow your body to sink into relaxation for a moment. This is something that we can do at any time. It only takes about 30 seconds, as you can see. Something that allows us to return to the present moment, to let go of what's holding on to us on the outside or what we carried with us throughout the day. Something to remind us that I'm still here and I'm still okay. Thank you all for joining me today for this mindful moment.
Perfect. Yeah, I was chilling over here, straight chilling. All right.
It'd be like that.
So, as I mentioned before, a very special guest. This is actually the second time that we've done this. We did this all once before and ended up not turning out the way that we expected. So we're here and we're gonna do it again. So, our guest on the show today, she is the brand CEO of Notes for Corrin. It's a brand focused on encouraging individuals in their growth in the Lord, one day at a time. You can gain one moment, please. I'll edit that out. You can gain encouragement right through listening to her podcast, Another Day, Another Chance. We would love to welcome Natalie Murdock to the show. Natalie, how are you doing today?
I'm breathing. That mindful moment helped me just, woosah. That was wonderful. So I'm good.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic to have you back. I'm glad that we were able to get this re-recorded so that you can share with our community a little bit more about who you are, what you do, share your story, and then we'll talk a little bit more about your self-care routine. So I want to give you the space now to share with everyone more about who you are and what you do.
Last time, I told everyone about my education, which has been a journey. So in May, I will graduate with my master's in public health, which is amazing. I'm very excited about that. The month of October was interesting because I was applying for another grad program. So I'm very excited about that. That is my academics. But what I love to do and how I love to spend my time is solely focused on encouraging other people in their growth in God. As you said, I have a brand called Notes from Corrin where I do that. And it really came from this place of just understanding that the authentic side of walking with God, that story wasn't always being told. And so I feel like there were major turnoffs and things that were making people feel like, no, I want to be around that, and I learned as I was growing in my walk that there was so much to be said and so many stories to be told that could hopefully draw people in and feel more welcome. And so that's what I've been doing. But I also just love to encourage people. And so being able to mesh the two has been my pride and joy and what I hope to do for the rest of my life. So, yeah.
That is awesome. Yes, appreciate that introduction. I wanted to have you go a little bit deeper on that. So you share, what you do. You share what you're passionate about. Can you share what inspired you? What has inspired you to to be who you are and to
Yeah.
focus in on encouraging
It's a
and
perfect
helping
question.
people
It's the question I had
along
to
their
answer for
journey?
my personal statement for grad school. So I'm like more than ready. Um, yes. So I really think it started for
There we
me my
go.
first year of college. I went through a very interesting season of learning about what I was and was absolutely not passionate about. And so that was really challenging. But I think, sometimes the cliches where you got to hit rock bottom to figure out the only way is up, you know what I mean? And so I hit my rock bottom for sure, and really began to explore some of the things that you all are committed to helping people with. What does it mean to care for myself? What does it mean to be committed to meet faithfully, even in the midst of difficulty and growth and challenge? And so I went kind of on that journey and just began to realize that, like I said, I just really had a heart for encouraging people in their walk with God. And so that's kind of where the brand was birthed. But when you asked me the question about inspiration, I realized recently as I've been applying for this new degree, I won't say I realized, but I was reminded of the fact that, my grandmother, who died a decade ago, was a preacher and teacher. And she did so much to encourage people in their walk with God every day. And when I was 13 and she passed, I was sitting in the front row crying, just mourning her loss, but didn't realize that 10 years later, I would be committing my life to that very same thing and would carry those very same passions and desires. And so you talk about inspiration. I really think it started with my grandmother. I think she may have planted that seed, and I just didn't know it at a young child, as a young girl. My mom, carried that in her own way and doing things
Hmm.
in our local community. I'm also inspired by other women who are truly, I'm inclined to say independent, but I know that means different things to different people. So I'll say are individuals in that they are not defined or
Okay.
confined by others, by their partners, in their leadership and in their willingness to do what they feel like God has called them to do. Even if that means it translating in a non-traditional way. So what sometimes you see for women in ministry is that people don't
Mm.
believe women should be in ministry, or people don't believe women should preach and teach, or people don't believe Black women should do that. And so before I knew it, I was
Mm.
being encouraged and inspired by Black women who were doing this, who were stellar and were not necessarily like pastors' wives or anything like that, the way that you often see it in a traditional sense. And so I realize now that I think all of those little seeds were planted in me, that inspired me in just moments when I didn't realize it. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes we get that intentional inspiration, but I think in this case, there was a lot of subconscious inspiration that was going on, that was really helping me grow into who I am today. So that's what I would say to your question of like, what is my inspiration? And the deeper thing behind it is definitely that. And I'm so thankful that I was reminded of my grandmother, and what she did. And I don't know, I don't think I forgot, but I don't think I realized how they connected. You know what I mean? How the two stories really do mesh. And so
Hmm.
that, I count that as a privilege and a gift, and an honor. So yeah.
That's awesome.
No, dope. Something that you had said in the beginning was that you realize that this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. And I respect that so much because on this journey, a lot of us will end up in situations where we think we want that. And then somewhere down the road, we're like, oh, no, I want to change this. But you said it with such conviction. So I would like you to just kind of share, how did you get to that point to know, you know what, I
Yeah.
want this, I choose
Yeah.
this is who I'm
I
going to be
really
moving
think
forward for
it
the rest of
came
my
from this
journey.
place of feeling like I was continuing to be gifted with vision for the future. So for me right now, I'm 23. I'm getting ready to graduate from my first grad degree, headed to my second. Acknowledging, not wanting it, but acknowledging that I may get a third, right? So there may be a PhD down the road. But I don't know how fast God is going to move on my dream in the middle of me being in grad school and being equipped to get the skills to do this well. And I feel, well, I know that vision for what is to come, ideas, tools, resources, people, relationships are continuing to be offered at such a rate that I realize I'm not going to stop. Like, I can't. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much to be done. And so because of that, because I also believe that God will continue to cast vision, that I don't think that there will be a stopping point for me. Sometimes I wonder, will I have the privilege to just pass it on to someone else to continue the work? Because it will. I'm gonna die before this thing is done. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Obviously, I don't know the future. But what I can say for now, directly in answer to your question, is that I feel like vision is still being cast. The opportunities are still coming. Relationships are still being
That's awesome.
developed. I'm still growing as a woman. And because I know that's happening, that means that there's still more for me. And I think that will continue to happen. I'm learning that it's okay to dream big and to trust God, and that at the right moment, in the right time, the proper things will come to pass. And my dreams just keep getting bigger and bigger. And so that's why I have the conviction that this will be something that I will continue to do until it's time for me to stop. So, yeah. Yeah.
That's dope. Very awesome.
All right. So one of the motifs of the show and of our brand as a whole is developing ourselves into the best emotionally intelligent example that we can be, so we can be that best example for our next generation. And in thinking about emotional intelligence, like being aware of, being able to control, mindfully expressing your emotions, handling the relationships that you have with yourself and with others with empathy and compassion, and thinking about your journey of developing into where you are mentally and emotionally. Can you share some of the struggles that you may have faced along your journey, and some of the ways that you have
Yeah,
overcome those
absolutely.
struggles up until
So
this
like I
point?
told you, I all kind of started from my first year of college. And during my first year of college, I was studying pharmacy, which when I say that now, it just makes me want to laugh because it's like, man, I was way off. You know what I'm saying? Like way off. And I had to figure out like, okay, that ain't it. That ain't it. But I really thought I was going to study pharmacy since I was probably a sophomore, junior in high school. And so when I got to college and I realized that wasn't going to be it, I didn't notice that I had placed my worth in the hands of my future career, you know, that my identity was seated in becoming a successful licensed pharmacist when I graduated, or that my identity was seated in the people that were around me. And so when those people left, because there were some transitions at the end of my first year of college, and when I had to change my major because I was not succeeding in pharmacy, like I really had a moment. I won't even say a moment. I was in a season for sure of depression uh, and dealing with suicidal thoughts because in essence, I've learned to communicate it this way, that placing my purpose and my worth in the hands of those things left me with no purpose and no worth when they were gone, you know? And so because I had lost my sense of self, it made it very difficult for me to see the point of anything. And I think that's the reality for a lot of people, right? That we place our worth and our sense of identity in things that may change. And then when they're gone, it's like, well, what do I do now? And that can sometimes put us in very difficult mental health positions. And so I know that was the case for me. I know it was. And so that was definitely probably the biggest mental health struggle that I've had. What I can tell you right now in this season, 4 or 5 years later, that my mental growth that is happening right now is learning how to trust and have faith even when I'm in pain. You know what I mean? That is hard to do, you know. That is very hard to do, but I think God is teaching me that choosing to do what I feel like God has told me to do is the best thing that I can do, even when it's hard and even when I have to choose um, to put other things away or to put other things to the side or make new decisions. That's tough, you know. But like I said, I think God will also honor that, that making the right decision to do whatever He's saying, even when it's hard and even when it's painful, is good, right? And we'll be given rewards. So, yeah, those are definitely some of those mental and emotional struggles that I've endured because we all want what we want. But the belief system that I subscribe to, yeah, I want what I want, but I want what God wants for me more. And I trust God enough to do that. You know what I'm saying? To
Respect.
follow that. So, yeah,
Dope.
for sure. For
Thank you.
sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Now, in thinking about your journey, talk a little bit about self care and how it has influenced your journey and some of the ways that you
Yeah.
practice self
So,
care
I
today.
think that's sleep. You know what I mean? I got to go to bed. My body doesn't let me stay up anymore, which is crazy because I used to really be able to stay up. I mean, I used to really be up till 3, 4. And then you see me the next day doing what I got. I can't do it anymore. Okay, I can't. And sometimes I have to nap during the day as well. So yeah, I have to sleep. I have to sleep. Um, I think the other self care is investing in the things that I know are good for me. So right now, I have the opportunity and privilege to spend more time and like reading things that I like. And as much as I love Netflix, and it really used to be my spoon, cool, you know what I mean? Like I sometimes you gotta dial it back, you know. And so I'm enjoying like reading mysteries, and just reading books that I enjoy that pour into me. One of the books that I read or am reading, that really helped me in my path of figuring out what my next degree would be, is a book about Black women in ministry, which can be hard to find.
Mm.
But the woman who wrote that book wrote it in a way that she was like speaking to her niece or her daughter or her mentee or whatever. And so when I read it like she's talking to me. You know what I mean? And so it encourages me as I am walking this journey of serious faith because I don't know what's going to happen for sure. I can't tell the future. I just know what I believe God has shown me. Right. And so it's a faith walk. It's a whole lot of faith walk and trust. And so because of that, like you're talking about, you know, self-care, the inspiration, it's needed to keep on going. So I would definitely say right now it's leisure reading, and it's rest, are those two kind of key things for me. And this is, ooh, can I add one more? Okay.
Of
Last one is
course.
community. So I wouldn't say that I'm a huge, like, I know everybody knows me. That's not me. I know of people and people know of me, but do I know them well? Probably not. I have a very small circle of friends. But I love being able to socialize with them and talk to them when I'm in a space where I can. I think I identify as introvert, which is weird because when it's time for me to get up and do what I got to do, my light pops on like you would never guess that I was. But most of the time, I prefer to be in my apartment by myself, right? Not being bothered. Um, but I have found that community, talking with my mother, talking with, you know, my closest friends has helped me so much, in feeling like I'm not by myself and getting the encouragement that I need to continue on my journey. So those three things are huge for me right now.
Dope.
It's awesome. Yeah, I know sleep. That's transformed my life.
Listen,
I'm a completely different
okay,
person because I get consistent
seriously.
sleep now.
Yes,
So I
yes.
feel you.
I can say that was the hardest part of
Really?
my journey was figuring out sleep. Even now, like it's not bad. I just like honestly, I'll be
Yeah,
up until 3. Like you said, like be up late, but then I'll make sure that I get an hour nap in, or if I get this and that, because I can't say like I'm a
yeah,
structured sleeper. I like call it
right.
more like fluid sleeping. Because if I'm up doing something and I'm like zoned into doing it,
That's
I'm
good
doing it. I don't
though.
know what time it is, but then after it's like, okay,
That's
now I have to
good
get
though,
this
because
sleep.
that means that whatever task you have to complete, like you will complete. Listen, I have had moments where it's like, okay, I got a
Yeah,
whole to-do list. And then I find myself leisurely reading, and before I know it, it's the next day. What happened to my to-do list? You know what I'm saying? So I really do honor that, because sometimes I wish I had that type of grind. But I also know everybody's different, you know what I mean? And so, grind shows up in
True.
different ways for different people. So, yeah. Mhm.
very true.
Most definitely. Most definitely. All right. Now, in taking it back to what you're most passionate about, I wanted to know if you could share with everyone, for people who might be interested in beginning to develop their relationship with God, how would you
Yeah.
recommend them get started?
So I would strongly encourage, just telling God that. right? So sometimes people make it like bigger than it has to be. And I won't say bigger than it has to be. People do it differently. I'll say that. But what I found is praying and going to God and saying, God, I understand that, I cannot be the Lord of my own life, and I desire to trust you. I believe that, Jesus died on the cross. God raised him from the dead. You're the only Savior that I can truly have and that will care for me. And I desire eternal life. And that's what I would encourage them to pray. But I also have found in my walk that once I was willing to get honest and get real with God was when my relationship with God changed. That's the case for like all relationships. It felt revolutionary for me, but obviously it's the case for all relationships. If you want to build any type of intimacy, right? You want to really know me, you want to really love me, tell me what's in your heart. You know what I'm saying? Tell me how you really feel down deep in your soul. And so I think also in that prayer, acknowledging and being honest about your need, and your desire for God. And then also the things that you don't know and the things that you may question, the things that you may be confused about. I've heard something phenomenal that is, I don't remember the scripture for this, but in essence, people will say like, God, I believe, but help my unbelief. That there are some spaces where it's like, I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with believing that you're going to provide. I'm struggling with believing that you're going to work this thing out. I'm struggling with believing that there's purpose for my life to live another day. You know what I mean? I think also telling God those things, because to kickstart that way, I think grants you the privilege of seeing God move deeply in you. Because God will acknowledge those things that you've shared in whatever way he sees fit, And I know I've had moments where I've prayed things or even haven't had the courage or the desire to pray them, but God will still acknowledge and respond to those things in my life. And it makes me feel like, dang, you really be hearing me. You really see me. Like, you're really working on my behalf. Really? And so those are the things that I would encourage. I would, acknowledge God and the position that you want him to have in your life, that you can't do it on your own. Acknowledge Jesus died, God raised him from the dead. And then giving God the space to really hear your heart and where you are. I think those things are very important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Definitely. All right, Nick, do you have any final questions before we go through the last couple questions that we have for Natalie today?
I do not. I've just been enjoying listening.
All right. So, technically you've answered these before, but this is going to be
right.
the first time that everyone listening gets to hear these answers. So, you're going to be ready, though. You ready for them? Okay. And actually, I'm interested to see if any of them change. So, I'm going to keep my ear open. All right. So, the first one. What 3 words would you use to describe the relationship you have with yourself, and why would you use those words?
I'm sure it's changed because I don't remember what I said last time. Because I was thinking about when I was preparing, I was like, yeah, he's probably going to know that it's not the same. So I would say committed would be the first one, which I think I did say last time. Committed. I would say growing. I don't know a synonym for that that's prettier than that word, so we're just gonna go with growing. And then I'm inclined. Oh, vulnerable. I say committed because. So I told you guys about Black women in ministry and all of those things, right? I don't have the traditional story of a pastor taking me under their wing, and mentoring me and giving me the room to learn how to do X, Y, and Z. No Corrin has been birthed. The podcast was birthed just out of a heart and a trust that this is what God is saying. And so I feel like that demonstrates my commitment in the face of seeing some of those things, right? Seeing some people be mentored by pastors, seeing, and desiring that, but not necessarily being able to get it. So that's why I say committed. I say growing or evolving. There we go. That's a better word. Evolving. Okay. Because I acknowledge that there's always something new, always something more. And I always desire that for myself. What's next? I think is the most frequent question that I ask myself. which I know has its pluses and its pros and its cons, right? Because sometimes I really got to cut myself a break and just acknowledge the success that I've experienced, and I don't do that as often as I probably should. But knowing that I'm evolving shows a commitment to growth that is good, and that will allow me to continue to change and to create more and to do more and to respond to hopefully the needs of the community that I believe I'm called to serve, right? The last word, vulnerable. My whole story is centered around this idea that I was ready to, I won't say centered, but it starts from the point of me being ready to take my own life, you know? And it can be a really hard thing to say. Like, especially, I remember that season of my life very vividly. And so, when I remember sitting with my therapist, and it was right around that time of year. And I was crying because I was like, man, but I was thankful, but it was also just like, man, I can't believe I was there 5 years ago. Like, that's serious. And then thankful that I'm still here, right? As you said, in the mindful moment. Mindfulness moment, mindfulness moment too. Mindful,
You
okay.
got it.
So I'm gonna make sure I say it right. You got to cite stuff right. But yeah, so vulnerable because I think a deeper relationship with God that some of us desire but aren't willing to put the work in to get, calls for vulnerability. And I think growth within ourselves, being willing to be honest and say, I ain't doing what I got to do right now. What are we gonna do to fix this? Also calls for vulnerability. And that's what I'm doing my best to do every day. So, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, no, they weren't the exact same. There was one that I don't remember that you didn't say, but I think the first two were consistent. So
You're
that's
kidding. That's
that's
all. Come
awesome.
on, look.
No, I think so. Yeah,
We
yeah.
growing out here. You don't know, there's some themes here. Some themes. Yes, that's good.
All right, last question. I'm gonna set the scene for you. So you have 1 minute, and the whole world is listening. What would you share with the world?
Yeah. So why am I looking at the time so I can time myself? Yeah. So I would first say that freedom is waiting, that God is waiting and available to you. I am. I know it can be hard to believe that, especially based off of what people tend to say, or the things that get attention in social media. Um, but freedom is waiting, which means that God is waiting, and available, is what I would absolutely say. I would affirm the challenge that is related to being willing to get in a relationship with God, that it can be radically uncomfortable, and very, very pushy, because it calls for you to be humble in a way that most of us would prefer not to be. But I would say that it's worth it, and that in the long run, it's what's best. That's what I would say.
Respect. I like that. Thank
Yeah.
you. It's awesome. Well, we have made it to the end of the episode. I once again want to thank you for being here with us. Now I want to give you the space to share with everyone listening how they can stay in contact with what it is you're working on and ways that they can support you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad. I really enjoyed this. Like, this did my heart good. So thank you for having me and for your patience as I endured my many trials into this moment. But yeah, so they can find me first podcast. So we are wrapping up, or would have just finished, my series on my podcast, Another Day, Another Chance. So I said in my 1 minute, like, freedom is waiting and God is waiting. So I pre-recorded a series of 10 episodes with guests over the summer, talking about liberation, all of their different, authentic, honest stories of how God has moved in their life. And so those have been rolled out over the course of this semester. Sorry, y'all don't function semesters. Over the course of these past few months. But please tap in and listen to them if you're interested, or if you just need some encouragement each Monday morning when you get up. An episode should be waiting for you. Another Day, Another Chance podcast. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Notes from Corrin. My middle name is spelled with 2 R's. So it's NOTESFROMCORRIN. That's the page. So get plugged in, and yeah, we'd love to have you.
Perfect. I will definitely be sure to add links to what Natalie just mentioned into the show notes for the show. So be sure to check those out. And yeah, once again, thank you. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for making it back on.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, Nick, what would you like to leave everyone with today?
Man, every moment of every day, we all have the opportunity to choose a perspective that we get to carry into every situation. If you don't like the perspective that you carry, that has a lot to do with your habits. But beyond all that, be kind to yourself, because the more that we're kind to ourselves, it makes it easier for us to be kind to others. And keep enjoying your amazing journey.
Dope. And for me, I normally say something. How do I start it, Nick?
You don't have to be
perfect. That's right. No, great. Not that part. Not that part. I got it now. I'm back. I was zoning. I was listening to Nick because normally Nick's is a little shorter. So I was like listening. I'm like, oh, he bringing a lot of them today. Okay. All right. I'm ready. It's my time now. I'm ready. So we are unable to fill anyone else's cup if our cup is empty. So be sure to prioritize time for self-care. Continue to learn, continue to grow, and develop your sustainable self-care system. Lastly, you don't have to be perfect in order to be great. If you want to incrementally improve the quality of your life, all you have to do is get started and keep going. So keep that in mind as you continue to develop into the best emotionally intelligent example you can be for our next generation. Thank you all once again for tuning in to this episode of the Balance Period podcast. We look forward to having you join us next week for our next show. Peace.